A lot is being made of Cam Ward deciding not to play in the second half and Miami's loss to Iowa State in the Pop-Tart Bowl. But to me, as a diehard Hurricanes fan, I am forever grateful for what Cam Ward has done for this university. He gave me my best year being a Hurricanes fan, and I've been a fan of this program ever since I first started watching college football, which has been 14 going on 15 years now. So I'm just grateful that we even got to saw half of Cam Ward in this bowl game because he didn't have to play at all. But what does disappoint me is what I saw out of Miami the final 30 minutes of this game, which was the start of the post-Cam Ward era for this football program. And life without Cam Ward looks really depressing because you look at how bad Emory Williams played, the fact that they didn't trust him at all. They were going ground and pound. And as soon as they were running the football at the rate they were, I knew what it was with Emory Williams. I knew this dude probably wasn't that good. And when the game was in his hands, he had a chance to win it for the Canes. He come up short. And my initial takeaways from this Pop-Tart Bowl loss is that Miami doesn't just need a new quarterback, but they need to go ahead and drop a bag on a new head coach as well, because without Cam Ward, Miami is going right back to what they were, being a mid-football program and underachieving. It's one thing to be a great recruiter, but being able to acquire elite talent is only one piece of the puzzle to being a great head coach. You have to be able to develop that talent and put that talent in the right situations to succeed, which Mario Cristobal has done a poor job at doing. He wasted one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever put on a Hurricanes uniform. If Cam Ward was playing for Alabama this year, they probably would have been in the playoffs. You don't get a quarterback like Cam Ward every year out of the transfer portal. This dude is truly a generational kind of talent that Mario Cristobal just wasted because he had an incompetent defensive coordinator in Lance Guidry, who he just fired. But Lance Guidry isn't the only person who needs to go. He needs to go as well, because I keep hearing that it takes more than a few years to rebuild a football program. Does it really? Because Curt Cignetti, in 1 year at Indiana, took that program to heights that they never been before. They've never won as many games as what they did prior to Curt Cignetti arriving. And for the majority of my life, Indiana has never really been talked about for being a good football team. They've always been a basketball school, and yet it only took them 1 year. Although they had a weak schedule, Curt Cignetti was able to turn that program around and get them into the CFP. What about Rhett Lashlee, Miami's former offensive coordinator? In 3 seasons, he has rejuvenated SMU football, because I don't know how many of you guys remember how good SMU used to be back in the day, but they were paying players back when it was illegal to do so, and when they got caught, their football program got the death penalty, and at that moment, you never would have thought that they would be ever able to get back to the same level that they once used to be. But with Rhett Lashlee, not only has he done more with less, but he also has won a conference championship, that being the American Athletic Conference, the final year in the conference. And then his first year coaching SMU, being in a Power 4 conference, he takes them to the ACC championship game, and they nearly win it. And when you have 2 head coaches, and Curt Cignetti and Rhett Lashlee, who are able to do more with less at programs that are not considered to be traditional powerhouses, compared to somebody like Mario Cristobal, who has a lot of resources, easy access to some of the best recruits in America, because Mario Cristobal doesn't have to go far. They get some of the best players out of high school. All of the best talent mainly is like 5-10 minutes down the road from where Miami University is. So we know he's a good recruiter, but he's a poor game day coach. Look at the loss to Syracuse. The fact that he opted to kick a field goal instead of going for it when you knew how bad your defense was playing. You knew that you had to roll the dice, and instead he chose to play it safe. What about when Miami lost to Georgia Tech? They got out-coached in that game. You can say all you want to about Curt Cignetti and Rhett Lashlee getting exposed in the playoffs, benefiting off weak schedules, but At least they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat. Mario Cristobal lost the teams that he was favored over. He was in the shootout with Duke, for crying out loud. Hell, he had to come from behind to beat Cal on the road. And if it wasn't for the men in the black and white, he also would have lost to Virginia Tech as well. If you take Cam Ward off this year's Miami team, this is a 7-8 win team at best. And without Cam Ward, I don't expect Miami to be anywhere as good as what they were this season. Now, are they going to become Florida State bad? I'm not expecting that to happen. But I am expecting a major regression in 2025 when it comes to Miami football. And I know how it goes being a fan of this team. It seems like it's the same cycle every time Miami hires a new coach. You know, they peak in year 2. You know, in year 3, you know, they might be a little bit better. And then after that, they come right back down to earth. It happened with Al Golden. It happened with Mark Richt. I don't really want to say it happened with Manny Diaz, but, you know, it kind of is the same cycle when it comes to Miami football. They have a good year, and then they just crash back down to earth. And I don't really have higher hopes for 2025. Mario Cristobal has to prove me wrong, because with how the transfer portal is looking, there is no Cam Ward out there. There's not going to be another generational quarterback for Mario Cristobal to waste, because he constantly has to get bailed out due to how bad of a coach he is. This dude is not a good coach. Oregon fans were celebrating when he left to take this job because they knew they were about to upgrade. And how is it that they lose Mario Cristobal and yet they get a better head coach in Dan Lanning? Why couldn't we have hired Dan Lanning? He was available. We could have gotten him. We had the money to do so. So without Cam Ward, I expect Miami to go right back to what they were before Cam Ward arrived and Coral Gabriels, and that is being a mid-football program that nobody really talks about unless you're making a joke about them. I enjoyed the brief, 1 minute of fame that Cam Ward brought to the University of Miami. You know, everybody doing the celebration, everybody talking about how far Miami could go in the playoffs. It was good up until Mario Cristobal's terrible coaching wasted what was one of the greatest players to ever play for Miami.